Hello my peeps, I am Inko, and recently I have felt the need to play most of the anime games that have released in the past year. I enjoyed only a single one. This decision was born from me remembering my obsession with anime JRPG games during my middle and high school years. The feeling of vitriol when I saw realistic graphics. I would slide my way back to my parents' living room and play Shining Resonance at full volume, no headphones. Now that I am entering my man-child years, my body is beginning to go through some changes. My tastes have gotten better. I find joy and appreciation in things such as Bladekin. But now, instead of vitriol, I feel rage whenever I see one of these anime girls covering my screen with their high-pitched wails and the silly dances. Get the fuck out of here. Where did this hatred come from? Well, in the same year, I played two exceptionally good JRPGs, alongside some of the worst crimes man has ever recorded in video game form. This dichotomy was too much for my Inko-sized brain, and it rewired it completely. Also, I realized how long these games take, and I decided to not spend that much time. Still, despite all that, I come back to play these kinds of games because one of them was about Ronald Reagan witnessing New York City getting nuked, to which he shits himself and wakes up younger in a castle where he's tasked to protect some cat boy. Will Ubisoft ever make a game like this? Will Naughty Dog ever make a game where you live for 13 days, then get reborn as a little kid, that also features survival mechanics, such as a piss and shit meter? I don't think so. Valkyria Chronicles 4 is a game that features neither Ronald Reagan or shit mechanics, and it is worse off for it, but it does feature kids and nukes, and they're both somehow related.
It is a game I enjoyed when it first came out, and with the dissatisfaction that recent anime games have given me, I decided to jump back in to see if the enjoyment was still there with my newfound worldview. Surprisingly, it still was.
Valkyria Chronicles 4 is the fourth game in a series revolving around a fictional conflict in the fictional continent of Europa. The war consists of the Federation, who are every country that isn't Germany fighting against the Empire, this game's version of the Axis. The Empire is a mix of Germany and the Soviet Union, but mysteriously leaving one country out. The war itself is started over the fact that there's this cool new rock called Ragnite that does everything. It can be used as medicine, batteries, Viagra, lamps, nukes, and can exponentially increase torrenting speeds. The Empire would like to have some of it because they disagree with Square Enix's recent decisions, but still want to enjoy their games. So they invade the neutral country of Gallia that has plenty of natural reserves of this rock in its mountains, and it's where all our main characters are from, effectively starting World War II, where everyone said oh shit and began fighting. It is a simplified, more consumable, more coherent, and less incompetent version of World War II, because this is an anime game rated teen, so they probably wanted to keep it as light and bubbly as you can, so that means omitting certain unsavory details. That also means no Joseph Balling, no Dripston Churchill, no Benito Swagolini, and no Drippler. The war at large is not really the main point of Valkyria Chronicles 4, however. If you want more of the actual happenings, I recommend Valkyria 1. I did play it, and then I stopped when a woman gave birth inside a tank. One day I'll finish it. Or you could read about the bouts of lore and the newspaper articles that explain the current state of the war in the world. The game in particular is set in the front lines of the war with the actual army of the Federation, an alliance known for their war crimes and extortion of smaller countries to join them in the war. But at least they respect women and pretend to believe in freedom, so it's all good. We follow Squad E, led by Claude Wallace, a prominent squad because they've managed to not die after one battle, earning them the title of Elite Ranger Corps. It is also a squad that conveniently has all the people he once knew in his hometown of Hafen. The premise is that Squad E and all the Federation forces are prepping for Operation Northern Cross, a last-ditch effort to end the war, which involves pushing forward into Empire territory by taking the border and overwhelming Empire forces from inside. What they did not account for was that the Empire was doing this on purpose, knowing that these anime girls and their frilly skirts would not survive the cold Siberian winter. They could not, and the Empire quickly picked them off. This mirrors the very real Operation Barbarossa, which implies worse things than La Mau. The Germans lost because it's too cold, and just like the Germans, the Federation began to freeze to death. But it turns out failure was sort of planned, but not really, as the Federation has a final solution, if you will. This includes some big-ass boats, cute girls, and the potential death of millions of people, and Squad E happens to be right in the middle of it. The story is pretty good. It tends to have too many anime hijinks that don't blend well with the overall tone, and also features extremely hilarious anime moments. This is funny, right guys? It also has some really weird plot holes, but other than that, the story is quite engaging. While it focuses less on the war at large, it places its narrative on the people combating the war, as the justification of it's either them or us slowly wears off. The main characters being forced to make increasingly morally questionable decisions, trying not to become like the enemy, even as the Federation pushes them closer to it, and they begin to question everything about themselves. Why did they join the fight? Who do they fight for? Why do I do it? Is it for silly ideas such as civil liberties, equality, democracy? God no. I do it for the smile Eileen gives me when she mows down an unsuspecting enemy combatant, leaving their family to wonder what their final moments were like, as all that remains is mangled, unidentifiable pieces of flesh. Gameplay. It's also pretty good. One of my favorite combat systems out there because it is completely nonsensical, poorly balanced, and generally kind of wonky. But it features enough freedom of choice to be fun. Valk 4 is a turn-based tactical third-person shooter visual novel that Sega pretentiously calls the Blitz system. Wars are usually fought with people, and Valkyria Chronicles 4 is a game with many people. Classes. There are 6 classes in Valk 4, each one with their varying degree of weirdness. But before we talk human, we must talk tank. You have 4 of them, technically. The Hafen will obliterate anything, provide cover, and generally get stuck on terrain. I rate it good. The Cactus can be destroyed easily, has no weapons except the water gun, and will also get stuck on terrain. But it can carry people and go a noticeable distance, letting units save their own walk juice. The Glory is the Hafen's younger, less endowed brother, so I never really used it. And finally, the DLC rewards you with the Idlewise. You can't upgrade or customize it, so I also never really used it. Leveling tanks is straightforward, but customizing is a different beast. You have a grid of varying sizes to install a limited number of parts. Deciding what parts you want is vital, as they can either be armor reinforcements, ammo increases, new weapons, more seats on the APC, and other stuff. Decide what's important to you and equip it massively. Unfortunately for the game, I am a master at Wudoku, so I am capable of outsmarting it. Anyway, shock troopers. They are the backbone of your squad, resilient to gunfire for longer than most and equipped with machine gun and grenades. They will pretty much gun down everyone as they have the most ammo. Plus, they have flamethrowers to ensure the extermination of the non-believers. Later in the game, shock troopers become the most overpowered unit and will be able to do shit like this. Scouts can run the fastest, have a great throwing arm, but will be shredded to pieces when confronted with any other unit. They may have been the meta in Valk 1, but with a single tweak, being putting their defenses and health way low, they are now still kinda useful. Their sacrifice will be essential to locating the enemy. Engineers will save your life at any possible moment. They can fix tanks, fix sandbags, disarm landmines, revive and restock other units, and most importantly, they can basically run across the entire map. But they have ass damage and ass health, so they will crumble at the touch of a bullet, or their bullet will crumble at the touch of anyone. Lancers are blast resistant, but with low mobility and low ammo they are quickly replaced by a shock trooper or a tank. But at the beginning of the game, they are essential to destroying tanks and other stationary enemies. In a battle, if a mortar shell doesn't kill you, it will leave you horrifically and irreversibly injured. This does not translate into the game. I would have loved to see enemies crawling around on the floor because their legs landed on the neighbor's roof. But beside that, Grenadiers are still pretty fucking sweet, as they can essentially hit targets from across the map, especially when it's not your turn. This is also true for the enemy team, so have fun. Complete with high explosives, they will demolish enemies and hurt anyone else that was standing beside them. Grenadiers are also the best way to get rid of stationary machine guns, saving you the need to have a troop take damage or finding a way to get behind them. Snipers are just that, they can hit targets from very far away. They are more useful when on high ground, which is rarely. Before you start combat, you're probably gonna have to watch a cutscene.
Humanity will never be emancipated from its lowly origins until we figure out to not shit anymore.
Actually, you're probably gonna have to do a lot of shit beforehand. Select your group of shit posters and then select who you want for a certain battle. The game will tell you that you have 10 possible troops to deploy, but if we're being real here, the real number is 4, since for maximum efficiency, you will always deploy these story-centric characters, plus your commanding troop. Battles typically have 3 objectives: ensure there are no survivors, capture the enemy base, or escort units to a location. There are a couple variations on these, but those 3 are what you'll be doing most missions. This is the only real information you will get about the current battle, so plan accordingly. Once the battle starts, you'll be presented with a map. Here you can see where your units are, the enemy bases, and the enemy locations as long as one of your units has line of sight. Select your target and you will possess them. From there you can walk as long as your walk juice is active, then you come to a complete stop. Make sure to either avoid enemies or run faster than they can shoot you, since units on standby will react to movement. They attack together too, so if that happens, say goodbye to your health. Once you reach where you want to go, you have the choice of one action. Keep in mind that you can't move and shoot, so good luck with that because you're gonna get shot at, so be fast. And you better be fast at ending your turn. There's also the chance that the person you shoot at doesn't want to die, so they'll duck. It's fucking annoying. And there's counterattacks to consider. Your character might avoid them, but really it's up to RNG. So how do you prevent a counterattack? Well, surprise attacks or just shoot them from far away. Or kill them. Up to you really. That encapsulates a single turn, which you have a limited amount before your phase ends. How do you get more? Well, remember when I mentioned story-centric characters? Each one adds moves to your phase. Don't bring them along and you'll have half as many. But you know, the choice is yours. Have your platoon be a bunch of cute girls so you can roleplay Sailor Moon Goes to War. On paper and on a practical level, the moment-to-moment gameplay is not overtly complex, but it's in the details where it all matters. After your turn ends, you will be at the mercy of the Empire, the most elite and brutal force in this world. One that has ravaged the entire continent, nay, the entire planet into a selfish war. Well, at least in the story. The AI is kind of wonky in this game. Their preferred strategy is to walk into gunfire and hope for the best, except for the times when it's not and they successfully counter everything you've been planning. When it's the enemy turns, the same rules will apply to you. Your units will be on standby and they will shoot at anything that moves. On the battlefield, it's do or die, and you will die. The maps are now much bigger than before, giving way to plenty of optimal routes to take. There's always the choice to take the enemy head on. Results of this choice may vary, but it's always there. Then there's these small little paths that take you around the map. Send in a small hit team while the others fight the enemies, slowly inching towards victory. You can send 2 units to sneak into the rooftops and kill units above you, securing safe passage. Capture a base to prevent enemy reinforcements and then replace them with your own reinforcements. The possibilities are close to endless. At the start of the game, it won't feel that way as a lot of early missions are strangely linear. But thankfully that wears off when the game starts throwing you into actual full-scale battles that don't have a clear path. Or ones that do but are so jam-packed with enemies standing in your way.
My heart is pounding.
Depending on your first time playing, these missions can take around 40 minutes to an hour. And later missions that add the difficulty will absolutely take more than an hour as you trial and error your way through the game. At every step of the way, the odds are stacked against you since the enemy will always outgun and outman you. And if you're like me, you're probably not going to want any of your units to get downed, which is going to mean a lot of restarting. There's permadeath, by the way, though the conditions of the unit dying are quite specific, so it's not exactly something you have to worry about. But still, I wanted all my troops to survive the battle, so restarting the level when one of my units was down became a constant thing, leading to a loss of time and most annoyingly the in-game hours being unsynced with the Steam hours. But all the strategy you put out will be dick if you don't adapt to the bullshit a game likes throwing from time to time. This does become extremely frustrating later on. Did you not perceive the 2 shock troopers around the corner that the game didn't tell you about? You fucking idiot. Did one of your soldiers die because they got shot by a tank that was hiding inside a wall? Well, silly me, I should have accounted for that. The most egregious example of this was a mission further into the game where, after completing the objectives, the game randomly spawns the strongest tank in the game, as well as a complete platoon of reinforcement. I peed my shit when this happened. I spent the last 30 minutes on the first part only for this asshole to wipe out my entire team in one turn. But that's okay. With your combined knowledge, you can say fuck you to the game by placing a bunch of lancers near each other, directly above the tank's line of sight. The game does this twice, and I did the same thing twice. Adapting on the fly also applies when considering that every unit is complete in their uselessness. At the start of the game, they will be a collection of anime tropes, including but not limited to tsundere, yandere, childhood friend, angry, racist, bald, poor, Annie Lenhart, Armin Artler, twice, black, Japanese, French, drunk, and Iron Helmet. There may be tropes, but as the game goes on and the more you use them, they stop being one-dimensional bullet shields. This is furthered by the little side stories they go out on, but also by things the characters say in combat, which reflects an aspect of their personality or worldview.
The darkness within. Oh god, I don't want to die! Keep firing!
It starts to get a little weird when they repeat voice lines 30 hours in. Like, yes, Inko, this is war. You've been here since the start.
I'm sorry!
Keep your eyes open, Inko.
So this is war.
These voice lines can change depending on their character development. and their various quote-unquote quirks manifest in gameplay in ways that'll shit your doo-doo ass and either make you have a better day or make you quit the game. For example, my man Aladdin has a bald ass head, therefore it gives away his location to the enemy because of how light refracts from his smooth, shiny scalp. Viola has a disdain for darksons, a race of people who are generally known for thieving, poorness, and dishonesty. It has been verified and quantified that a darkson would rather sell off his own wife in preparation for the Steam winter sale than to live an honest, civilized life. Knowing this, Viola would understandably want to secure her belongings when placed next to a darkson, leading to a lower defense in the battlefield. At the moment when I need accuracy the most, Riley will decide that it's a learning experience and miss the shot entirely. Flore is a goddamn weeb, so at the most vital moment she would decide not to shoot her gun, wasting her entire move and throwing my strategy entirely away. Rebecca is one of the few engineers we get, meaning she's one of the few with the potent ability of resurrection. However, because of some dumb lore reason, she will deny bringing your unit back under the guise of, "You're fine, it's only life-threatening internal bleeding. Fuck you, into the waste bin you go. Don't use niche."
I'm getting nervous.
And my favorite, Vancy, who is 100% always drunk as dick and is the only character to start off with all negative traits. When you get her, she starts off with Drunken Stagger, that decreases her chance of avoiding attacks the more she gets attacked. Low Blood Pressure, which lowers her aim if you choose her before anyone else. Flashback, that causes her defense to be lowered. And the shiny beacon above all, Hammered, which means she is so unbelievably drunk she cannot function, causing her turn to end.
What, you don't want a drink? What, you don't want a drink?
I'm in love with her. She is legitimately my favorite character. She has the second best stats for Shock Trooper, and later on she gets a perk that boosts all her stats, making her one of the best units in the entire game. There's a lot of traits to go around, far too many to explain, and the way they show up in gameplay is incredibly entertaining since they are completely controlled by RNG, making it like you're on a roulette, adding suspense because you just don't know when or what some of the characters will decide to do, so you have to adapt. Of course, not all traits are terrible. In fact, a lot of the characters have game-breaking ones that will benefit you at every turn, but it's more fun to talk about the ones that fuck you over. And beyond adding twists to the gameplay, it goes a long way at making you attached to some of them. I would have liked more interaction between all the side characters and not just their squad stories. Squad stories are the aforementioned side missions units go on to help develop their background. These are unlocked easily, simply keep using the character and eventually you'll unlock it. You'll also get added text to their biography. Squad stories are composed of a couple cutscenes and a single mission. Not a unique mission, unfortunately. The game reuses maps, and there's not a lot of variety in them except for a couple. These stories themselves can range from being really good to really shitty. The good ones tend to be a closer look at the characters, their motivations, and their personal feelings towards the war, or comment directly on the main story, while the bad ones are just kind of lazy or uninteresting, and at the very most unspeakable worst, a bit cringe. The worst ones are the lazy kind, where characters just explain who they are, or their backstories while standing around in the middle of a battlefield. Gameplay wise, developments that happen here will change negative traits into positive ones and give you added buffs.
I'm in love with you. Out with me sometime?
What?
I still would have liked something like an overarching storyline between more than just 3 of them, or more skits revolving around them and not just the main cast. The DLC has something like this and it's a pretty fun romp. I would have liked more of that. Still, I think what we got is satisfying, albeit a little underwhelming. So basically, you're gonna have to eat shit a couple times. Nay, every time you're gonna have to eat shit. At every turn there's gonna be something pulled that you didn't account for. But after enough trial and error, enough teasing, something clicks, you see the victory line right in front of you. Fuck-ups start to look intentional, as if you planned for them all along. And before you know it, you've become the Rogue Warrior, the most feared platoon in the entire war. And you feel like a goddamn warmonger, capable of declaring war on Italy if you want to. That is until the game slaps you with a fucking B rank and tells you that you missed killing the so-called ace of the mission. Unfortunately, Valk 4 features an unnecessary ranking system that ranks you on the most fucking arbitrary shit, meaning it ranks you solely on how many turns it took you to finish the mission, not on enemy kills or units used, or if you used orders or not, or how many of your people survived. So while a ranking system is a great addition to the game, I wish it didn't rank me based on how well I cheesed through the mission. This mind-boggling decision is detrimental to the game as a whole since it's not promoting creative play or actual strategic decision making. It's encouraging you to bum rush levels, which then also means the game is actively discouraging you from engaging with the levels themselves. Why waste time clearing out enemies and finding different ways to the enemy base if all that matters is beating the level in 2 turns? Unless you're doing a challenge run, it doesn't matter, which is a weird design choice since it's throwing away a lot of the gameplay choices you have. I wish it ranked me on more stuff like how the enemy tank got stuck on shitty terrain and I took advantage of this. But if you really want to cheese and bum rush the game, then I recommend using the built-in cheat system called orders. Orders are essentially buffs for your entire squad or only a single squad mate, and they work essentially by Claude telling you not to die from bullet wounds and the unit taking that to heart. There's quite a few of them, which unlock by leveling classes or watching unfunny skits at headquarters. A lot of them are situationals, while others will basically break the game. All units defend will allow your units to walk through ridiculous amounts of gunfire and come out generally uninjured. That is unless you get hit by a grenadier or step on a landmine. Fortify armor will apply to one tank, allowing them to actually be a tank and not get destroyed by anti-tank weaponry. Fortify threads lets the tank keep going after you get hit by a grenadier. Enemy grenadiers can and most definitely will hit your tank with 100% accuracy and cause it to stop dead in its track. I fucking hate grenadiers. Penetrate allows shock troopers to do this. Combine this with attack weak spot and watch them completely embarrass every boss in the game.
Take care not to slip on the fresh fallen snow.
Now, this is all well and good until you realize that the orders are working as intended. After completing the game, you will unlock hard skirmishes. Alongside that, you will also unlock the level cap of 30. Unfortunately for you, you will still be stuck at whatever level you're currently on until you grind to that cap. The enemy team will automatically be at level 30. Here, orders will be the one thing that prevent you from getting 2-tapped by the enemy team. Eventually, the strategy of running to the winning enemy base and taking it in a single turn will become less viable. Enemies will break your defense faster, making you choose between spending moves on orders or moving a unit. It's great. I wish the game had another difficulty other than normal so I could go back to certain missions and not be overleveled. DLC. There's quite a few. The first one you get is a joke mission that unlocks a joke character. There's one where the cast of Valk 1 meets with Valk 4. Alicia makes bread and Kai likes bread, which makes me believe this aspect of the character was written just for this one scene. And there's racism in this. There's a beach DLC that's basically, well, fan service. The main characters have a fun day at the beach after capturing an enemy vacation spot, and Raz learns about consent. It makes no sense, it is completely absurd, and it's pretty damn fun. The missions in this DLC are challenging and require some effort. The first one requires you to hunt down 6 specific enemies in 3 turns, while the second is a big ass map with really strong enemies. And after beating all that, was I compensated? Were my efforts rewarded properly? No. The artist of this game is called Raita, and half of the erotic fan art for Valkyria Chronicles come from him, so I'm not seeing anything I haven't seen already. The final DLC you unlock after beating the game. It's a side story featuring the main villains, featuring Reiner and Berthold. In this pulse-pounding mission, you're obligated to cheese the shit out of a boss fight while basically killing your own countrymen. It's fun, they can't hurt you. After which you unlock both Chrymeria and Saliva. They have big tits. The beach DLC applies to them too. They're also incredibly overpowered and will suck the joy out of the game completely. But titties though. In short, the DLC is kind of meh. It's not good. I wouldn't have bought it if it didn't come included. Criticism and nitpicks. After missions, you're gonna have to go back to the headquarters. This could have been a hub area where you can walk around and see your units hanging out, doing shit, exercising, socializing, maybe even have a chance to talk to them. Unfortunately, it is not. It's a collection of menus where you can level up troops, upgrade gears, weapons, and the tanks. You can reassign units, change equipment, all that shit. And in a game as menu heavy as this, it does not spark feelings of love. Leveling and gear upgrades is a bit linear, so why not make it automatic? I sincerely doubt anyone would spend XP to have classes be at different levels from each other. Also, doing anything here plays an unskippable cutscene. I've upgraded this shit 4 times, Miles. I don't need you to tell me how much you like it. You can't skip these or turn these off, so enjoy. Also, when unlocking orders, you enter a mess hall to watch characters talk. If you don't have the necessary XP to buy the order, the game will kick you out.
When you do return, you have to rewatch the skit. You can't skip it, so enjoy. Anyway, if you can get past certain difficulty spikes, an overly rigid ranking system, and the design disaster and disappointment that is Headquarters, then you'll find this game with many things to give, albeit a bit frustrating as those little nitpicks do end up piling up. But it offers plenty of unique missions and fun combat to keep you on your toes, even if the combat doesn't make sense on a realistic level. Like, why are people standing around taking shots at each other? What exactly happens when Claude orders someone not to die? Who knows? It's taking its liberties with your suspension of disbelief. I like it. It's fair to say I enjoyed my time with it. It made my brain work at least once or twice. So, with gameplay out of the way, there's one last aspect to Valkyria Chronicles 4.
None of us yet knew. We couldn't foresee what this war would cost us. It was a battlefield, but it was where we grew up.
Beyond the gameplay, there lies the come holding the game together, giving context to the missions and everything around you. The story. My original draft for this video is going to be a comparison with Scarlet Nexus, which I played before replaying Valk 4. In my mind, I was remembering Valk 4 to be a poignant anti-war story that surpassed every anime game I had played since. That the story was miles beyond what Scarnuts had to give. And to be honest, after playing it again, it's really not. I'd say they're on equal footing in terms of quality. But despite this, I still ended up liking Valk 4 a whole lot more than Scarnuts or other anime games in general. The story's not perfect, nowhere close to it. For starters, it stacks plot holes on each other while introducing interesting shit that it does not expand on. The characters are also subjected to bouts of convenience when necessary. Small spoilers from here, nothing major. But the best example of this is the Kai-Lina plotline that is very prominent throughout. Early in the game, you find out that Kai isn't Kai but rather Lina, and that the real Kai now goes by Forsetti Spaghetti. This is all contextualized in an interlude called The Other Kai. So basically, Kai goes off on a top secret mission and comes back only to tell Claude and Raz that he's gonna dip and that his sister is gonna take his name in place. And my guys go along with it. Why? Well, they're friends. But why did the entire squad go along with it? Instead of showing what happens next to Kai, which should have been the main focus because next time we see him, he is a high-ranking Imperial officer. The entire chapter is a funny, light-hearted episode about the squad trying to fool their superiors into thinking that the new Kai is a dude. They didn't even commit to this bit. She's wearing what she always wears. Cover your tits, dog. Wear a huge jacket or some shit. Hell, why not wear what Kai was actually wearing? But yes, this chapter is ass because it glosses over so much shit. Like, how did Kai actually pull this off? I'm sure swapping identities while you're in the military is a bit harder than this. How convenient that the squad wasn't inspected and that the new Kai wasn't caught. Also, Kai may have been responsible for the death of a couple hundred of people and it's sort of brushed off without any real consequence. Then we have the ending, which is so lifeless. In short, the game has a big action moment and then it ends. There's no falling action, no resolution, they just beat the bad guy and credits roll. Then the game has the fucking balls to end on a cliffhanger. To unlock the actual ending, you gotta use the new currency to buy some shit ass new cutscene, plus one that should have already been in the game. Then you have to fight the final boss again on hard mode, which it's not, it's easy. And then you get the true ending, which is about 1 more minute of content. There's no dialogue, and it's essentially the entire cast back at Hafen, including a top secret military super weapon, all cheering you on. Did the fucking devs run out of money or some shit? They had time to make this. Why isn't there an epilogue for all the characters? Why don't we get to see what they're up to now that the war is over? Why is a top secret super weapon allowed to be roaming around freely? Literally give me anything else other than a fucking corny happy ending. After finishing the game, I had a hollow feeling in my nutsack. I really liked the gameplay, flaws and all, but the story is a really big part of the game. Like 50% of the entire game is dedicated to story. So flaws like this aren't exactly easy to overlook. What the hell had I actually liked from the story? But the more I thought about it, and while making the video and talking to a buddy, I realized why I stuck with the game. Yeah, certain parts of the game feature chimp brain writing, but other parts are actually quite engaging. As stupid as Foreskin Spaghetti leaving was, his goals were quite understandable. He wants to make the Federation stop gathering children to experiment on them, which I mean, that's a fair goal, I can get behind that. But the way he goes about it is by teaming up with a scientist that also likes to torture people and make his own harem or some shit. He's a complete hypocrite and the game knows this, the same way the Federation has become hypocritical in its advances. He represents what war does to some people and how they eventually start to justify doing horrible shit. It's quite good. Really what makes this game for me is the characters, maybe not Kai, but seeing how they trudge through a shit ass war and how they grow on each other really did captivate me. Raz going from a dickhead shoot first kind of person to a completely trusting Claude, or how when Claude is breaking down under the weight of what he's about to do, who comes to support him? Why, the girl who is introduced to us like this, telling him that she carries a lot of the blame as well.
Claude comes off as a wet pushover anime protag, but really, well, he is, but he also commands respect on the battlefield. Except for the times when he lets people loot bodies or have a drunk in the battlefield or ignores insubordinate. Listen to me, trust me on this, Claude is a good protag and a competent commander. And usually in anime games or in anime in general, when characters start talking about their childhood or how good friends they are, I tend to roll my eyes. But when it does happen here towards the end, it doesn't feel corny or sappy, rather it feels earned since these dudes have been away from home for like 3 years. Which is why the ending is such a disappointment after we've learned so much about what these characters plan to do once the war is over. The story is quite bleak and dark overall, which makes moments like Chapter 5, which is the closest this game gets to a laid-back slice-of-life anime, stand out. But in hindsight, parts like these are memorable not because they're cringy or even unfunny, but rather because it's the few moments of levity these characters get before they're thrown into another life or death situation. When the game isn't trying to be funny, dialogue feels organic. It lends itself to characterizing them and actually acting like people. These people feel like they've known each other for a while, that maybe there's still some animosity left over that they have to work through. It leaves its characters, including the minor ones, being more memorable than, say, characters from other anime games. Then there's the villains. I've already mentioned Forcom, but then there's this lady who's always whining all the time. My man Genichiro is here, but this time he's super horny. I hate these two, they're fucking annoying, but they're also wilding on Twitter, so there's that. None of the villains are particularly menacing or even deep, but they are entertaining to watch, and that's good enough for me. So, at the very end, in retrospect and in hindsight, what do I truly think about the story? Yeah, it's alright. It doesn't really hold a candle against some of the greats, but in my own humble opinion, I find it a lot better than other shit releasing of the same genre. I love when turn-based games go wild and do creative shit with their gameplay. Maybe I'll finally finish Valk 1. It'll have to do because, to be honest, I don't think we're getting a new Valkyria Chronicles game like ever. This game more or less just fizzled out as soon as it was released. I don't even remember how I found out about it in the first place. The game did sell 1 million copies, but like after heavy discount and 5 years. You can buy the game and its DLC at a low price too. But really, if the series has to end, then 4 is a pretty good send-off to the series. The combat is at its best with all its refinements, and the story successfully feels like you're fighting in a huge overbearing war. And if not, at the very least, it's a fun strategy game. Go play it. Anyway, that's about it. More videos coming soon. Feel free to refute some of my points in the comments. Do what you gotta do with the like and dislike button, and I'll see you next time.